And we are live, baby. Top of the morning for me, start of the day for all of you. Welcome back. We have a fun filled show for all of you. And we are going to be having a gathering of the minds. Today is theory, no exams, no finals. You guys have a few weeks to study, but um, we're going to be having a nice discussion. So, shout out to my crew. Um, Let me see something. Shout out to my crew. My crew is so ill. We ain't even gonna go there. I ain't even gonna break it down. but first things first. First of all, let's power up our um our assistant. Power up, Bonnie. Can you hear me?
I sure can, Bonnie. What's on your mind today?
No, I said power up, Bonnie, meaning you.
I understand now, Bonnie. You're asking me to power up. I'm always ready to assist you. How can I help you today?
No, I'm not Bonnie. You're Bonnie.
I understand. You'd like me to act as if I am Bonnie. What would you like to talk about?
Well, I'm having an open discussion and I want to do the introduction first and then I'm going to bring you back on so that you can help me tell the story.
Sounds great. I'm ready to be Bonnie and help you tell your story. What kind of story are we sharing today?
I'll be right back. Let me do the introduction and then I'll power you back up.
Sounds good. I'll be here, ready to be powered up as Bonnie when you need me.
Okay, 1 second. So, as you can see, this this version, this model is the memory is just not there. So I cannot engage the voice commands until I have everything queued in. And you know, it's a limitation because this one I have unlimited access to, but the data banks are completely different from the other ones that I built. So it's okay. First and foremost, VaynerMedia Challenge is on. Hydration, baby. Let's go. Give me 1 second. Oh my goodness. Give me one quick second. This is extremely important. I apologize. I'm more machine than anything else. So I have to clean my systems out so I can function. Give me 1 second. Okay. So about halfway done. So let's get started. I'm starting the day. I power up my systems and um I'm not worried too much about the markets. It's the middle of the week and I had quite a few business meetings yesterday. My most important meeting thus far was on Monday. I walked away from that situation completely, and many things came up, like many things, were developed along the journey. And actually, let me check something. Yeah, I'm correct. And in a lot of these educational modules that I've been teaching or that I've been studying online, basically, you know, many questions came up, and I wanted to elaborate on some of those questions, right? I wanted to speak on some of those things, and I wanted to shoot from the hip, just fly off the handlebars and just kind of talk to you guys about it. So, in the discourse of this conversation, I'm going to be highlighting a lot of those concepts, but there was something that piqued my interest. And because I have a radio show and because I have a podcast, and that project is on pause, which that project won't be activated till probably sometime tomorrow, the day after. I love the opportunity to record early in the morning. So I like to do that first thing in the morning. One second. One second. I have to finish this. This is so important for your system. And that's why I tell you guys, bring your coffee, bring your tea, bring your protein shakes, bring your natural fruit juices, whatever gets you going throughout the day. I actually don't have coffee. I have to wait till later on to get coffee. But then I have to be careful because I can't be drinking coffee like that. I love coffee, but I can't be drinking coffee all the time. At least not anymore. Not at this point in my life. Before I used to drink like at least once a day. Not anymore. So my my MPs, right? This is my military crew, right? For technology and for the music business. There was a question that was posted. If you could go back to your inception, the beginning of your career, putting myself as an example, what would you do differently? So it had things like the choices were, be more consistent. I've been consistent since day one, so not that. Learn the business early. No, I learned the business before I got into the business. You know what I mean? And there was another option which I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was something like it wasn't as intricate as the first two. But the only choice that I could select was actually I selected the last option, which was building a team slowly, right? I want to talk about that. Let's talk about my career, right? When I started music, it was spawned from motion pictures. I was writing movies and series and sitcoms and scripts and stories. I was, first of all, I love movies. All of the people that know me know that I love movies. I'm an avid movie collector. There's no classic that I don't own in my personal collection. I collect actual film. So eventually, with time, you guys will get to see more of that. But I always loved movies for reasons that I reserve because it means so much to me, especially now that I'm getting back into movies. Like there's so many movie projects that I'm working on. I've been in movies in real life myself, not as an artist, but just overall. And some pretty big movies too. Not that I played the biggest roles in them, but it's a lifetime dream, that I already achieved many, many years ago, like over 20 something years ago. But anyway, I'm also going to talk about being a star in my family. So we'll put that on the board as a highlight. So making movies was so complicated back then. It was so intricate. It was so, you know, challenging just to break in. Like, of course, I did all the things that I could do independently. I did all the things that any aspiring model or actor or performer would do to get into showbiz, right? And yet I didn't have the results that I wanted. So, long story short, basically I started making my own films as my way to break in. Well, it got very expensive very fast. And I only used everything God gave me, which was like, equipment hand me down from friends and things like that. Like a lot of my friends growing up, we all come from divorced parents, right? So, during the time that the marriages were perfect, back in the days, if you were doing really good, you always bought some type of camera, right? And you would have the father or the mother record every moment, every precious, moment in their lives, right? Well, after divorce, those are the first things that get put on the shelf is that camera and the blank tapes that they never used and the extra boom and microphone setups and things like that, extra batteries. And little by little, my friends were interested not only in being inside films, and that's where I would come in and like write the scripts and direct and film. Like I used to do everything myself, do the editing, all that good stuff. And my friends used to skate, right? They used to skateboard. So I was very good on rollerblades and I was a very good skater. So it allowed me to film everything, and lo and behold, my my movie career takes off, right? It got to the point where the equipment that I used was so old that the batteries were damaged and we didn't have any money to replace them, right? So I would walk around with the charger, like the extension cord, and I would find a light post and open the bottom of the light post and plug in. And that's how we would film. So we were limited to where we could film because the camera couldn't really go anywhere. And anywhere that it could go, it really didn't matter because it was impossible to film. Eventually, we moved on and, life continued. But I was able to network, meet a lot of people. Looking back, it must have been really cool to talk to some young kids that wanted to do movies and be in movies. And just like Matt Damon and uh, Kevin Affleck, is Kevin Affleck? Ben Affleck, I'm sorry. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, they were really childhood friends and they really like started doing movies the same way, right? So shout out to them. One second. And those guys are legends, by the way. They're always sources of inspiration, right? We have to draw inspiration from as many places as we can. So, long story short, it was decided that music was something that we could do, right? That would allow us the gateway to eventually make it back to films. And honestly, looking back now, that's what I've been doing my whole career. So, long story short, that's how everything kind of panned out for me, right? So, got into music from movies, applied everything I knew about, the streets growing up, living the fast life, the motion picture entertainment industry, and combined it with music, but always with the inclination of an entrepreneur. So, one last thing I want to mention is I had some childhood friends move to the south. They moved to Florida, and they still had the habit of making these home films, right? So my friend started this production company for his home movies, like amongst us, and he called it Fat Boy Productions. So I started a company, and it was called Skinny Boy Productions, right? As a way to kind of joke with my friends. So he had Fat Boy Productions, I had Skinny Boy Productions. And eventually that turned into my record label, believe it or not. But long story short, I get into uh into music. But music is a different journey because now I have to be an artist, right? And of course, now I'm older. So my awareness of society, my stomping grounds, everything that's going on around me is completely different because I was always living the fast life, but I was trying to do film and, you know, I was always a businessman. So I'm going to downtown to Panavision and finding about, finding out about these 35 millimeter cameras. And I'm looking at this budget and I'm like, man, this shit takes, it takes street money, you know what I'm saying, to do these films the right way. Obviously, I couldn't try to pursue a film career, shooting film with video, I mean, I tried like 8 millimeter, 16 millimeter cameras, but that was just not the case. That was not the business. I bought a lot of old school broken down cameras and things like that. And I didn't have the film for them. I didn't have the parts to rebuild them. I would just buy them because I would get them for a really good deal downtown in New York, especially in New York. And I didn't realize that it was all the independent filmmakers that were selling their old things because they just couldn't get parts for them, And here I go, trying to buy them, and then I'm stuck with them and I couldn't rebuild them. Also, as a little bit of a background, my godfather was always into film development. He used to own a very famous business that's open to this day, very close by my house overseas. And it's nostalgic because I was just there a few weeks ago and I got to walk through the front of it on the way to my house. And back in the days, when you had pictures, you had to get them developed. Not like now when you go to Walgreens or CVS or the pharmacy and you get them developed from a computer chip or from a digital device, right? Back in the days, you actually had to take the actual film and get it processed and things like that in like a dark room and things like that. And long story short, I've always had an affinity. That's the correct word. I always had an affinity to film and things like that. But I always loved film. Um, my childhood best friend Jerry, my brother, who's always watching. Um, his father has an amazing movie collection, probably the best in the neighborhood by a long shot. Like he is the inspiration. And shout out to you, Mr. Joe in the Heavenly Realm. He's the inspiration for my collection. So I winded up traveling throughout my life and going all over the world. And everywhere I traveled, I would collect film because I was so inspired. It was so important to me in my life, right? Well, um, my friend's dad and my friend Jerry, they had this like they have this collection. It's just like a vault, like the Disney vault, the Metro Goldwyn Mayer vault, like the fucking Paramount vault. Like you name a movie, I guarantee you that they have it. I guarantee you they have it in VHS, they have it in DVD, they have it in Blu-ray, they have it in HD disc, whatever. Like amazing, amazing collection. Well, I am making this change, right? Where I'm a hybrid, right? Because I'm doing films and I have friends that are aspiring to break into the business and I'm doing music, but I'm learning business from all these different standpoints. Like throughout my whole life, I've been studying business and learning business because it was the only path to success. Being in business, understanding business for me as a young kid, it was the only path to success, right? So I quickly learned the business, right, of music and film, and it's very similar, but it has its differences. And again, music by comparison was way, way more affordable. Mind you, I'm still learning English, so I got to watch movies from a visual standpoint my whole life. It wasn't until I learned English that I knew the depths of some of these films where I could fully understand them, not just understanding, you know, certain concepts or certain words or certain moments of character development through the dialogue and things like that. Like, I really had to watch films as if they were silent films and then go back and just listen to the film and go back and watch them visually and then watch them from a Martin Scorsese standpoint. You know, it's about what you can fit right here, right? What you can fit into the frame, right? And it's one of these things, right? I learned the business from people like Master P, um, you know, people like Jimmy Iovine, Jay Prince with Rap A Lot Records, Cash Money Records, you know, Baby and Slim, DNY from the Rough Riders, Kareem Spigsberg, Damon Dash Jay Z from Rockefeller, you know, the Gotti brothers from Murder Inc. And there's many other examples, right? Well, things progress, my music career takes off, my movie career is still kind of there, so I'm still kind of looking up to like the Tupac and artists like that, like the LL Cool J's that could do film and do movies and do modeling. Like they're the triple threats, right? They call them the triple threats. And I really see that that would have been the direction for Tupac to continue to do film and music and modeling and things like that. You know, Tupac was wearing Versace before it was the thing, right? So I formed my record label. I come in with my childhood friends, and basically we get organized, right? Start putting records out, start putting albums out. My friend builds a home studio. It becomes the hub. We're doing everything to stay away from the streets as much as we can. Where we're from, you really couldn't avoid it, but it really saved our lives. Looking back now, it really did save our lives, right? So this is what piqued this entire discussion, right? So long story short, as these things are taking place, I start building my record label. So I start building my roster. I have like must have been at least 20 something artists, 20 to 25 artists, including myself and even my little brother at the time. Shout out to all my friends and family. They're going to get a kick out of this, right? So, long story short, we eventually break through. My very close friend's mother was working for Calvin Klein at the time. She was doing some modeling stuff, and she was able to connect us with the people that eventually will build our team and will get us to a major, which we're not gonna mention who that record label is, but still a major to this day, and one of the top three labels. And of course, you know, we're Hispanic, so now it looking back, it makes perfect sense why they would want to sign us and things like that. But this was music business and music industry lesson number one. We walk in as a project to collaborate on another project from a corporation that was signed to the major label, who was collaborating with another company from the United Kingdom. This division being an extension of the major label. So already lesson number one, we are a company collaborating with another company, that's two, collaborating with another company, that's three, and two of these companies are business partners with the major label. So the major label is bypassing the system because there's one entity that is based in the United States and there's another one that's based in the UK, but it's the same company. They're just divided by corporate structure, same people. So there's multiple contracts and everything, right? Now, of course, our record deal is born from this project. At the time, the talk of the town was Destiny's Child, which my major was working on directly or indirectly. They were working those projects. And probably the reason why I signed is because of, major artists, such as, I'm not even going to mention that person's name. But anyway, the biggest person in that group, right? So now there's a European counterpart of a female group. And that was my way into the industry, working with this this group, these artists. So we're on a remix, it's me and my friend, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, everything starts from there. And again, this is the reason why I piqued my interest. And I said, you know what, before I get the day started, because I have a lot of business to do as every day, even though today is Wednesday, so it's boss day, it's the day that I get to reassess everything, right? I get to go to the whole of my ship and see what direction we're going in, right? So long story short, that was the start of my professional music career, right? Not from an independent standpoint, but from an overall standpoint, right? So long story short, and in between, I was part of a production company, which is funny because I got to talk about it a few days ago. Long story short, I go, and this is the most valuable lesson. I walk into this major with the leverage that I'm the hottest thing in the Sun's core. I got my own company. I got my own team. I got my own marketing budget. I got everything that I need. I got my own business partners. I got everything I need. And I'm not only coming with a catalog and underground hits, right? I'm coming with a roster of artists. So you know, I'm negotiating big things, right? So I am the CEO of the company. All the people that are there with me are my employees. They're my business partners. They're my team, or so I thought, right? As soon as we get to the negotiation table, we go from introducing our record label and myself negotiating a distribution deal so that I could be independent, so that I could follow in the footsteps of a Master P and a No Limit Records and a Cash Money and a Rap a Lot Records and Murder Inc. and Rough Riders and Rockefeller, etc. And mind you, at this time, all these companies are just starting to you know like they're starting to form, but I'm so close to the wave that I'm like, yo, this is the way, because these are the people that I look up to. I always did the business and the negotiations, but I made a terrible mistake. Out of the main three people in my structure, two of them joined forces. I put my trust in them to let them lead in these negotiations, these talks, knowing that even at that time they were not the best equipped for those discussions. It went from we're a record label seeking distribution to we want the opportunity to learn and intern and come in at the floor level and build from there. That right there, that conversation, that meeting shifted everything. It completely killed the momentum of everything we have been building up. Everything that got us to the negotiating table was all destroyed at that moment. And it taught me a valuable lesson because within a year or even less, I say within months, if you get down to the meat and potatoes, the technical side of it, within months, my team fizzled out. Within months, my two business partners at the time, I guess you could say that because technically they formed their own company. And we got so hot, like the hype, the vibe, the buzz was so strong that we were able to ride that buzz for like 3 or 4 years, especially back then. So we had the ultimate leverage in the streets to do anything because the buzz was crazy. And the public didn't know that there was a rift in the company or a separation in the company. Within 3 years, you know, I already have fought like Ice Cube to get off the label and sever ties with everybody, which I did. Another valuable lesson I learned was consistency, right? So it got to the point where I was more independent when you combine the time before the major deal, after the major deal, and some of these people became friends, close. Some of them became like family members, right? And I was able to have enough resilience to withstand these battles, right? I saw the industry changing. I saw the things that were happening. It was like a great area. I see now, looking back, what people were trying to do. I continue to do films and I continue to do music, but everything I learned, I continue to do on my own. And I remember even learning how to portray myself professionally in the public's perspective without burning bridges or crossing boundaries with people that, even though I disagreed with, I knew enough to be professional, not put it on the public palette, not make it a public forum for people to dive into things that they just didn't understand. This was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. For everything to be built up and destroyed immediately. I'm talking months, no more than a year. It was way less than a year because 2025, I sit on my catalog with over 8,000 songs. These are World Guinness records. Had that not happened, I wouldn't have had the motivation to continue, the resilience to continue. And my career wouldn't have taken the direction that it took because what it provided for me was the ultimate training ground. I went from nothing to as big as you can get to back where I started, only using the things that I had learned. And I was always a hustler, so I was always in the streets and I was very, very successful at it. Even though I always had an exit strategy, I always knew what I wanted to do, like long term, right? I always had an idea what I wanted to do long term. So that changed the dynamic of everything for me because now I was more careful. You see, do we still have sound? Uh-oh. We may have messed up the sound. No, we have sound. 1 2 1 2. Let me just make sure that we have sound because if not, we'll take a pause. That's why I hate touching that thing. Um, 1 2 1 2. We have sound, so that's good. So, long story short, it put everything in perspective for me, right? It put everything into perspective. Let me see if I can lower this so you guys can see my. Yeah, y'all know what's on the way, right? Y'all know what's on the way. Green Ranger series coming. So I learned all these things, right? Remember, I've been a star my whole life, right? And on different playing fields, from overseas back home, my family being in music and entertainment, and me dealing with the public pressure and the public perception really young and understanding it because around me all the adults would talk about it and I would have my opinion. Even though I kept it to myself, I still had my opinion. So when I was in public, I was able to manage all of these things. Like it was all a training ground for me, right? Getting picked up by a major label and looking back, it was a basic deal. It was like for a few singles or whatever to see if they could develop into something else. But because I came in as a record label fighting for distribution, it was a little bit different. And the people that I worked with were so focused on their goals that they missed the opportunity of a lifetime. And time developed to show that, right? To dealing with the pressures of being so young, being so hot, being so like we had everything we needed to be successful. But a part of us was still childish. We still believed in the dream, which, as much as I inclined for the business, you know, we have to be realistic. There was a part of me that was still childlike, that wanted to believe in the fantasy of, the dream of, you got a record deal and things are supposed to be this way and supposed to be that way. Dealing with the public because although I manage myself um, in the best possible way, I can only speak for myself. And other people maybe did not handle themselves in the best way. So I also got to experience the pendulum of public perception because my network was as big as the city, 8 million people. And I'm networking in every possible way that I can, right? Mind you, I'm struggling with the day to day lives of growing up in the ghetto, you know what I mean? And I'm, living the fast life. I'm trying my best, but nothing is working. So I'm just learning how to do things better, right? The most valuable lesson because I learned how to run my company. I learned how to deal with fame from back home with my family to in the United States with movies and films and independent films to documentaries to series to then doing music and having singles and having artists and managing artists and planning performances and tours. And it was just like all the odds were against me, but it saved my life because I was so focused on that nothing else existed. Nothing else was important. Like I really have been a child star my whole life and I've always been in the business side. So I just saw the eras pass, times change. I got to see how people changed, how people grew and developed. And I learned from the whole thing because, you know, I had no choice but to learn from it. Remember that now in my career, whatever agreements or situations that I had going on, whatever the friendship or the bond was, outlasted that. So I can always look back into retrospective, like, damn, look how things have changed. I remember my friends signed one of my artists, got him off of my company, and signed them to their company. And my friend was put in the center of this campaign, right? To try to damage or tarnish my company, which it was unsuccessful because I just had too much music. An artist myself, it was impossible. I had albums after albums. But it taught me a lot because let's say things were bigger, like $10 million bigger or 20 or $30 million bigger, it would have been worse, right? But God gave me the opportunity to learn that. People that I thought were friends became frenemies. People that were part of my project quickly dropped everything and went to do other things based on perspective because everything was manipulation. Everything was controlling the narrative. So if they felt like the perspective was that the grass was greener on the other side, they were quick to go to the other side only to realize that it was a mirage. Meanwhile, I'm looking back like I knew it was a mirage. I told you guys it was a mirage based on all these elements. But sometimes you have to let people see things for themselves, right? So it was a valuable lesson because it gave me the opportunity to travel the world and try different things and work with different companies and artists and things like that, and it allowed me to learn everything and develop myself. Then I saw the resistance from companies that I was associated with, and I got in the middle of their turmoil, not knowing that it was a product of the same environment. People were fighting for a crown that didn't exist. And shout out to those people because during Monday, during this masterclass that I took with my MPs, you know who you are. Uh, some of these things were highlighted, and some of these things came up in the conversation. So it was crazy and ill to look back all these years later, right? But, you know, it's part of my career. So I really can't, I don't have to elaborate on it. I can't really put it behind me forever because it is a part of my career. And I'm proud of where I am today because I learned these valuable lessons. But for new artists, I cannot stress the importance of having the right team that is not going to be there only when it's beneficial, right? Only when it's convenient or when it's cool. right? And answering that survey, right? Or that challenge, right? With my MPs, right? Which that's my management team, right? It highlighted all of these things because even as of recently, a few years back, I got into a conversation with my friend, a brother to me, childhood brother. Um, and even so, this person was nonchalant and said, "Yo, you're lucky if you get this type of deal." And I'm like, I'm not looking for that type of deal, what we were discussing. But it kind of not necessarily opened up old wounds, but it says a lot. When in modern times, we're already adults, we have families, we got wives, we got children. I have grandkids, you know, and shout out to my baby Nolani, who's 7 months old. So excited, right? Um, Basically, maybe held on to bitterness or resentment that the biggest artist in the history of music was the artist that before the industry slept on me or passed on me or the business side or whatever, they were the first to have access to me and my catalog and my projects and my albums and things like that. And when it's all said and done, history will show they were the first to have disbelief. In my career, once I signed these agreements, it will be forever known that the whole industry had a chance to work with me or sign me at one point, and they passed up. And now I have the biggest, most historical catalog. I know that that's gonna really suck for them for all eternity. Everybody's gonna know. Oh, you guys had the chance to, and you guys passed that up. You know what I mean? For triangulation, um, manipulation of the narrative. That's really what it was, and that's derived from ego and over exalting yourself in most situations. So it's a personality and a character trait. I'm a PhD. I'm a doctor, as you guys know, in psychology, amongst many other things. I'm a multiple PhD. But looking back now as a doctor, not as an artist, I could say that. But at the time, I'm a young kid. I'm just learning everything. Everything we're talking about, I was learning at the time. So again, how close am I to God? How privileged am I that God would teach me these things back then when everything was so simple, when God was really like working harder. Like I see how God just protected me throughout this entire journey. Looking back, I can say that now. I know many situations, moments, circumstances, people, places, and things could have been completely different. I wouldn't have developed my natural skills and abilities had it been any other way. And that incubation for those years served as the foundation to everything that I am today. And if I could go back and change it, I wouldn't change it. Even though at the time, you may feel like you're going through such a hurtful moment that you want to change things. Again, I don't want to look at it from a doctor's standpoint because I am a doctor and that is my main concentration. One of my greatest advantages in business, as a matter of fact. But and I'm self-educated, which is like super saiyan level of intelligence, which is, you see in my collection, I have a Broly series. Matter of fact, I released the album yesterday and it's called Power Mode Unlocked. I changed my avatars and all my social media. Um, Very symbolic album. Very much necessary, very much needed. You know, I can get to be more creative with the artwork now for my projects moving forward. Um, my newest business partner is handling all of the graphic designs. I'm very happy with the way that they put that together. But overall, there is an immense layer of gratitude in my heart for what I was able to learn, even though at the time it didn't seem that way. And I'm just so proud of myself for being consistent. I always say the child in me gave up my entire childhood for me to be who I am today, so that I can have this position of privilege and power and negotiate and delegate my catalog as I see fit. Um, I have found the last piece of the puzzle. You know, what I prayed for my whole life, I finally have that. And that album, which was released yesterday, recorded and released yesterday, is the culmination of that. And now all I can do is push forward. Just like having a rehearsal, attempting not to strain my voice as much as I can. This is exactly what I'm doing here. But the difference is I'm creating the content that will live forever, that will stand the test of time, where I get to express my story my way on my own terms and not have to be afraid that it has to be perfect because of this or because of that. Life is not always perfect. Everything cannot be formatted. There's no such thing as the perfect storm. And serving as an inspiration to all new artists or entrepreneurs or people in business or creatives or even content creators is an amazing gift and a blessing, and one that I can only keep by sharing it and paying it forward to the new generation. All my mentors asked of me was find somebody that you can help and help them. And I do this every single day. I connect on here through my own network. This is the ultimate training, the ultimate cerebro. And even if it helps one person, I'm very content and satisfied with that. And even looking forward, I know that this is part of my day to day. Again, I've been a superstar my whole life. So I know how to move in a room full of vultures, right? I know how to maneuver from the creative artistic side to the entrepreneurial, you know, business side. I know how to switch gears in between. So, like, I'll give you an example and let's see if we can segue into another element or another facet of what this open discussion is. For all my students, please take notes. So, in hip hop or in music or in art or in expression, visuals are important. We're audio, visual, interactive creatures. So everything I do deals with those three main fundamental pillars, right? When I'm on stage, I am Venom R1. When I'm in the booth recording in the studio, I am Venom R1. When I'm in public, I'm a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a God fearing man. I'm a man of my children, my family, my wives, my relatives, my grandkids, my colleagues, my business partners, my churches, my charities. I'm representing them in the public realm. I learned that very young. For example, my relatives that are world renowned historical music figures overseas, I always respected the fact that they had their own career prior to me. And they still have their career to this day. But now my career has surpassed everything that they've done, where I'm the biggest artist in my family, obviously, because my catalog, the sheer magnitude of my catalog, right? I'm still able to have the respect. For example, I get to travel the world frequently. I'm always on the go because I'm always doing business, right? I do international worldwide business. So even when traveling back home, I am still able to be respectful and not overstep my boundaries and bring my music career or my music projects to my family. I'm able to allow my family to have their career and do everything that they're doing. Like my uncles have a single that came out probably a few months ago. And I'm able to learn still from them, but respect their careers and their lanes in the same way that my career is respected. Now, I have a huge family. This is just one portion of my family. And actually, there are many feuds going on in my family right now. So, this section of my family, they try everything to sweep them under the rug. And now I understand why, because they're all the talented ones, they're all the creative ones. So, of course, everybody else will have jealousy and envy because they've done that to me my whole life. I just didn't understand why they would do that, right? So, again, it taught me about these things, right? So, I know when I see my relatives that are musical legends, right? The world sees the superstars. I see my family. I see my flesh and blood. I see the bond in our hearts. I understand their struggles and their battles. Although maybe they never went to the public and only disclose these things behind closed doors, I know what they feel because I'm an artist just like them and I'm inspired by them. So all the people that were against them, now I understand why I inherited the same hatred, right? And especially as my career took off and my catalog grew. The same is true with me. I don't get into the politics of my family and, you know, they believe that they're demigods, right? And that's how they live their lives. They feel superior. They have a small person complex, right? They're very abusive, very negative, very manipulative, very toxic. They all are. I've said it in my books. I'm an author of 45 books, published author of 45 books, and you know, it's something that goes on and on and on because it's a disease that these other family members have that they've never attempted to acknowledge. They've never went to go get the help that they need, right? Because it really comes down to being a personal thing. And I hate to go into it, but I have to be a doctor for a quick moment. I have to change gears and break this down. They are destroyed inside. So everything that they build, their foundation is destruction. Their foundation is a black hole. So they can't love anyone or support anyone because they don't love or support themselves. So they couldn't support those family members. They couldn't accept God's role in everything that has been our lives. And because they can't do it for themselves, they can't do it for others. And if they didn't do it for other relatives and family members, they're not going to do it for me. Regardless, when we're talking about image and visuals and things like that, you have to understand that I've always known who I am, right? So what does that mean? I know the real me. I know I could jump into a pool or go through some swimming or whatever, or I can go into the beach and go surfing. And when I come out of the water, I'm Superman. I know who I am, right? I'm Poseidon of the waters, right? People may say, wow, he looks like when he's on stage, he looks like he's a superhero. No, this is who I am. This is who I always have been. I don't mind teaching an engineering class and not having my hair braided and not having my hair done and not having, you know, my fitted or my jewelry or my fancy clothes, because those things are for interviews, performances, concerts, festivals, events, right? It doesn't matter if I'm doing a wedding or a sweet 16 or a quinceañera. It doesn't matter. Why? Because at the end of the day, I know who I am. So I know I can see myself on stage overseas where I'm fucking Godzilla and I look like $1 trillion. I look like a moving $1 trillion. But I also understand that that is when I'm performing on stage. That is when I'm recording in my studio. That is when I'm doing business and I'm putting all these things together. At the same time, I understand that I have a life outside of business and my career and technology and my investments and my charitable philanthropic, uh, projects. Some people choose to use that against you. So if they don't see you with the jewelry and the name brand clothes and your hair's perfectly braided, they want to look down upon you. They want to take away, in my case, let's say my example of my catalog or of my trajectory, or it can be so uh it can be so twisted because they want to control the narrative. So it's like saying, "Oh, you're a multiple PhD, you're a doctor, right?" And then they will use that to shit on the fact that I'm an excellent entrepreneur. Or they'll say, "Oh, you're a good artist," and shit on the fact that I published 45 books. But then they could say, "Oh, but your career is this," and shit on the fact that I built a $1 billion company in 19 in petroleum. And then shit on the fact that I built more companies in the Air Force and the Space Force for Homeland Security, Department of Defense, Air Force, Space Force, right? So it's like people pick and choose. It's like they pick and choose a way not to understand you, to belittle you, because they want to put you in a box that you fit into according to them. Because your box, your sandbox cannot be bigger than theirs. You can do good as long as you don't do better than them. You can be successful as long as you're not more successful than them. And you can only be successful in the realms that they want to encapsulate you in. And God forbid if you fight out of that box. So I can have a YouTube channel and it's about subscribers and clicks and views and likes, even though that's not correlated to how you make money online. You cannot go out of your way for people that go out of their way to not understand you, to not like you. I'm the same person whether I surf in Santa Monica or Malibu or in Miami or in Costa de Amalfi or in Puerto Rico or in Jamaica or in Cuba or in the Dominican Republic. I'm happy and I'm grateful that God is allowing me to surf. I don't care where the fucking background is. I'm the same person with my fucking surfing trunks. No matter where I am in the world, I don't have to have a Natas Copas board. But if I have a Natas Copas board, I'm appreciative. That's one of my best friend's nicknames. I know how much it means to me to have a board. It doesn't matter how expensive it is. I had a fucking Natas Copas board be stolen from me in Florida. I left it outside of my resort. I took my son to the store or something like that. We came back, it was gone. And it was fucking bright yellow. So it wasn't like somebody mistook the board for somebody else's board. These are all examples of the same thing. Now, from a personal perspective, I know what it's like when I'm on stage. but I'm not on stage every single day. I have a family. I'm a regular person, just like everyone else. You know how difficult it is to step out of your comfort zone and not only convey these concepts, share these concepts, but share them in real time. This is what Hollywood is not going to glamorize. When you guys see my movie, you're not going to see these parts. They're never going to put these parts. But I need this for me. I need this for the people that I love and care about to always have this. This is my journal. This is my office. This is my university. This is my fucking recording studio. This is everything that God has given me in one place so that I can create and continue to build this dream. I'm not afraid to let the public see me without Tom Ford and the jewelry and the super hyper car and all the production of a industry video or film or whatever. I'm not afraid because my music speaks for itself. What do you think? Like Tupac and Biggie were not regular people? You think they didn't warm up a soup on the stove if they were hungry? They didn't they didn't press down on the toaster to put the bread in the toaster? You don't think Tupac and Biggie opened the refrigerator and reached for a yogurt or a soda like everyone else? You're not going to see those moments in the Hollywood film. Why do I need to be afraid of being a human being? Why is it unwarranted for me to be a human being? Because people want to put you into this fucking box. So if you know that I'm artistic and I'm creative and you know that I'm a heck of a fucking entrepreneur, imagine when you put me at the negotiating table with a BlackRock and a Blackstone or VaynerMedia or Valuetainment, just to give you some quick examples. What makes you think is a difference because you see me with my hair braided, all done, chains on, diamonds bling blinging, and all that good shit? There's a time and a place for all of that. What do you think? I'm gonna walk around the fucking streets with $500,000 on my neck, $500,000 on my wrist, $500,000 on my watch, $500,000 on my fucking chain? I'm gonna walk around with $3-4 million in diamonds and jewelry. Where is the value of that? There's no value for me in that. You think you can drive a $5 million car every single day? You cannot. I don't want to drive that shit in the parking lot. You know why? Because that car is listed for sale. And if somebody calls me and says, you know what, I'm looking for a Lamborghini Countach and I need it in Zeus bronze, I could say I have 4 of them. Do you want the gold wheels or you want the machine finished wheels or do you want black wheels? Those are the only options that I can give you. Because at the end of the day, I'm here to do business. I'm not defined by what's in the portfolio. I'm not defined by having to go on Rodeo Drive. You could go on Rodeo Drive in a fucking Bugatti Divo right now. You're not going to impress anyone. You could go to fucking Monaco right now in a Valkyrie Spider and you're not going to impress anyone. There's 24 of them shits out there. And it's just the reality. So is that what life is really about? Do you understand that the more success I have, the less I care about those things and the closer I draw to God and the more God is like, yo, that's not even for you. Now, does that mean you're not going to hear it in my music? No, it does not mean that. Does that mean you're not going to see it in my music videos? No, it does not mean that. Does that mean you're not going to see it in my movies and my films and my series and my action figures and my toys and my video games? You're going to see that shit and all of that. But is that what life is about? No, that's not what life is about. Is that the value of who I am as a human being? No, it is not. I learned that all the way back then from being around the wrong people. And within a year's time, God found a way to get those people away from my life. God found a way to get those people, places, and circumstances out of my life. Because as you can see, 30 something years later, I'm still in this business and I'm only closer to God. Something that none of those people could really say. So, whatever they were willing to do, whatever they were willing to embrace as far as their journey, that is not as close to God, they get to live with that. I don't have to live with that. I know I made the right decisions back then. I knew back then that everything that glitters was not gold. And now I get to live it on a magnified level. So I look up to an artist like Russ. When you see Russ on stage, it's completely different than when you see him in the public. I look up to artists like a DMX. I look up to artists like a J. Cole. You know why? Because what you see on stage is what you see on stage. You see J. Cole riding a bike in downtown in Tribeca in New York, respect and props. That's really who he is. I am that kind of person. I had neighbors that were juggernauts in entertainment, and I always looked up to them for being who they really are. Keanu Reeves rides the fucking train in New York City and does not give a fuck what you think about him, whether he's Neo in the Matrix or John Wick in the Wick series. He's just a regular person. So why are we able to pick and choose and give that person their props and their respect? Yet, why do I have to deal with family that's fucking abusive? I don't have to deal with that shit. I don't have to condone it. I don't need people like that in my life. You either love me or leave me alone. I'm not here to do business with anybody. I'm not here to incorporate with any corporation. I met with a company on Monday. It was a quick negotiation. You guys are not the people that I want funding any of my projects. Your moral compass, your spiritual values are not aligned with mine. So thank you, but no thank you. Maybe in the future we can do business, but as far as right now, negotiations with that company are off the table. And they're scrambling right now. It's almost the third quarter. So they're trying to fatten up those books before they close out the year. I know the business, I know the game. They just paid taxes in April, May, June. What you gonna do now? Mama didn't raise no fool, right? Papa Bear smarter than the average bear. Don't think that I busted my ass these 30 something years in a university and that I study every fucking day like a machine nonstop. And I teach on top of that for nothing. All this knowledge had to be implemented somewhere in my life. I already told you guys about family members that would consume my content just to have something to talk about. Their life is so empty that they have to do that because that is their comfort zone. When people show you who they are, you got to believe them. And as much as it could be hurtful or disheartening, I appreciate it because God has given me all these things that God did not have to give to me. So I have to be grateful for that little question as I'm getting ready to start my day, as I'm getting ready to go work out and pray and meditate, to look back at the situation and say, wow, what an amazing blessing it has been for me to learn these things, right? For me to be exposed to these things at such a young age. I cannot stress to new artists the importance of having a team. As a matter of fact, yesterday in the gathering of the minds that I had with my MPs, basically there's so much that you could learn from technology from a technical standpoint, right? Everybody has a personal assistant now. There's no excuse. It can only make everything you do better. As you can see, we powered up Bonnie before we started. because I need Bonnie to learn from these things, right? But what about the commitment? Your team is equivalent to your management team in the sense that the management team believes in you the most because they are giving you the commitment that no technology can give you. A technical device can give you all the technicalities, a search engine, a library, uh, some type of digital assistant. But that commitment can only come from a human being. The person that I recently partnered up with, I don't want to say hired because I don't believe in the term employee. All I have is business partners. Just took a break from managing a huge artist, went through a huge experience, has learned so much in the journey, prayed, kept working hard, kept doing everything the right way. That's what I respect the most about the situation. And now has the most historical artist ever. I have the biggest catalog. What we're negotiating is all historic. I know that. Every time I record an album or record a song, I know it's historic because I'm breaking another record. As of today, 674 songs released in 2025 thus far. 25th of June, 2025, at time of recording. So all these things are essential. They're important because it is just the reality of my life. How many people are going to go back into this person's trajectory, their career, everything they've done, and they have a background in film, just like me? We all started, we want to do films, then did music, right? How many people are going to go back and say, man, I could have worked with that person. I could have been part of that person's project, company, investments, whatever it was. Now the phone starts ringing. There's more emails. There's more text messages. There's more audibles. Now everybody remembers. Oh man, I remember such and such. Wow, he's doing this. That's like you being in film and they're talking about the new Star Wars movie and they mention you, or the new Marvel series action packed film. Like I think Doctor Doom is coming out. I don't know when. But just to give you an example, it's the equivalent of the same thing in a different format. It's like people know who you are. You play in the NBA. You're in the most underdog underground team, and boom, Oklahoma City wins the NBA Finals. Now the relatives are coming out of the woodwork. The best friends from second and third grade are calling. You remember I gave you the crayons? You remember I gave you the finger paint? That was me. That was me. I was the person that gave you the finger paint. And it's just a fucking reality. You know, I'm happy to look back and say that the good guys are winning. The good people endured the battles to fight the greater battles for the greater good. So it has taken me all these years and all this time and all this experience to rebuild my team, to make a reassessment, not just because of legislation that was passed in the Senate dealing with my technology, which is digital technology, digital assets, right? But understanding a very important key concept that was presented to me just yesterday. With prayers, you will attract the people that you need to build the illest team. And I'm a firm believer of that because I have no idea how this started. I have no idea how this happened. I just saw it unfold. I shook enough trees for the coconuts to fall and the avocados and the mangoes. And they fell on their own. They fell because of gravity. All I had to do was touch the tree. I didn't have to shake the tree. I just had to touch it. I had to let it come to me. When I went overseas, I made my decision to go back to Jerusalem and go back to Mecca and do the walk of fire in Asia. And there was a tree in, the vicinity of my mother's house. And I had a connection to this tree since I was a kid. And I remember that moment where I just wanted to say thank you. I just put my hand on the tree. Thank you for being here. Thank you for surviving beyond all of the trees that were eventually cut from my family's property. Thank you for giving me this moment of closure because it wasn't just a physical thing, it was an emotional thing, it was a psychological thing. It really made the difference in my life. And I'm forever grateful. I'm grateful for this moment of clarity. I'm grateful to take something as simple as a workout survey as a way to continue engagement, to expand the algorithm for any social media, etc. But using it for business and for networking, right? I'm grateful that I was able to tap into these thoughts and uh, share this. You know, it's things like that that I'm able to, you know, I'm able to share and convey. You know, I'm grateful because it drove me to where I am today, to do it myself, to believe in myself, to build my own company, to cherry pick the people that I have on my team. It's such an amazing thing. And I'm so grateful that I got to convey these messages to you guys. Let's keep it short and let's keep it sweet. Let's keep it simple. Let's not continue to elaborate. I just want to say thank you to all of you for this moment. I can't emphasize the importance of selecting the right team. Take your time, make an assessment, try a lot of things, make a lot of mistakes, learn a lot, and just keep going. Again, for my content creation students, this is all part of it. What you guys may not realize is that I'm still learning every day. All that I know is that I have so much more to learn. That's my outlook into everything, you know? That's all that I know is that I'm learning every day. And every day I'm just making it better. That's my relationship with life. That's my relationship with God. God, every day I'm looking for ways to make it better. And that's what it's all about. So I leave you guys with that. I hope that this has brought value to you. Please like, subscribe, share. And we'll see you on the next one, which we'll be back on very shortly. I have an album to turn in. I have a few things to do. And I just want to say thank you to the universe for this opportunity. To all my family members, loved ones, friends, colleagues, business partners, my grandchildren, my beautiful wives, my parents, my brothers, my sisters. I love you all. You are my daily inspiration. And you are the reason why I do this every day. So every day we're just pushing forward and we're breaking through and we're building the dream. And building the dream is just as important as achieving the success and the dreams. And this will always serve as a counterbalance. I could be in my high rise in Dubai. I can live above the clouds in the highest of the most highest places, right? And I will always be able to reflect and look back at this moment right here and say, God, you know what? I appreciate it because everything that God gives me is a gift. Everything God gives me is a gift. You know, I could stop doing music today and I'm a legend forever. I could just put my music in video games and I'm good for the rest of my life. But I appreciate everything that I was able to learn. And I know that for some people, this may be hard to listen to. It is tough love, but it's love nonetheless, you know? And I'm not coming from a broken place of torment and negativity. This is all coming from a place of love because I've done an amazing job raising myself as a human being. You know, I've done a great job developing myself as an artist, and now adding people like Miss Debbie. Shout out to Miss Debbie. I forgot to give her a shout out. Miss Debbie. Eh, Shout out to Mauricio Ruiz, he's on the last album. I got two joints on there that when he hears them, he's gonna go crazy. You know, people like Crystal Delgado, Arlen Hamilton, um, even beyond a Mark Cuban, because if something spawns and he gets involved, great. But really, Miss Arlen Hamilton, you know, having people like that on my team is an amazing thing. There's people like uh, Kelsey Graham, which I forgot to mention. Even people from uh, from No Labels Necessary, you know, people like Brandman Sean. Like I'm very appreciative that those people have been instrumental to guiding the new digital phase of my career, where now this is day to day for me. I don't have any problem having a business meeting, a Zoom, presenting a pitch deck or a business proposal or a business plan because I've embraced all of this technology. And no, you're not always going to see me on my fucking Ducati popping willies because that's not what life is about. Although, granted, when those moments come, great to share that with the public. But it's really an amazing thing, man. It really is an amazing thing. And I'm very grateful and appreciative. So, if I ever have left anyone out, you guys are all an important, essential part of my team. Thank you very much and God bless, and we'll see you on the next one.